mini skirt on, dip my body in glitter. Platform sneakers, all the boys want a picture. Two foreign cars, I make rich look richer. Save your breath, baby, I'm not going home with ya. Mini skirt on, dip my body
Hello. You're now tuned into the A Little Bit of Life podcast. I'm your host, Kristen, and we are back with another episode. Guys, the title of this episode is Was Wicked Worth the Hype? And I just want to come off swinging, okay, off rip and say yes. The answer is absolutely yes. This week, we are talking about the Wicked movie. It was amazing. It was incredible. Like, I'm honestly gagged. Like, for real. OMG. I was actually supposed to see it like a second time, but there was a snowstorm yesterday, so I decided to not go. But I'm definitely going to go again this weekend. Hopefully the weather clears up. I wonder if it's snowing. Let me know if you're watching on YouTube in the comments or on Spotify in the comments. Like, is it snowing near you? Because we got a couple inches in Michigan yesterday, so it's getting crazy, totally not ready for the cold, but at the end of the day, that's not going to keep me away, okay? I'm going to go see this movie again. It was a fantastic experience, and I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about it on the podcast. So I just want to jump straight into it. But before we do that, if you are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Give this video a like, comment down below to let me know your thoughts on the movie, if you liked it, things you wish that were better, etc. And make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button. Your girl is now on her road to her first 700 subscribers. Can't believe it. Like, oh my gosh. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And turn those post notifications on so you're staying up to date with the show. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I see you. Go ahead and rate that 5 stars and leave a review to let me know what you think about the show. And there's also a follow button on Spotify and Apple. Click that button and make sure you're following me on there as well so you're staying up to date with everything A Little Bit of Live podcast. When it comes to Wicked, I always have said on this show that I feel like I was technically supposed to be a theater kid. When I was young, I was like a ballerina for a little bit and hated that. And I grew up doing cheer. So I was a cheerleader in like second grade, stopped for some reason, and then became a cheerleader again like 7th, 8th grade. And I was on varsity, and that was such an amazing experience. Like, cheering is like one of my favorite like childhood memories. So I was involved in like some type of group activity in that capacity, but I truly wish that I had done local theater. My boyfriend like grew up in high school doing theater, and my boyfriend's sister, shout out to you, girl, I love you down. She is a theater queen currently. She's in early college right now, and she just recently did a little like, they had like a showing where they did like a scene that they had been working on this year, and oh my god, like she ate down. So my loved ones are like theater people, and I just feel like I was supposed to be a theater kid. Like, honestly, if I had seen Wicked on Broadway as a child, I think I would have had the experience that like most people who saw Wicked on Broadway as a child had, and like immediately became obsessed with theater. So that is something that I do wish that I grew up on. So I am not familiar with the world of Wicked, you know, the book. Barely grew up watching Wizard of Oz as it is. And so watching the movie is like my very first experience seeing like any of the Wicked lore, period. But since watching the movie, I now pretty much have updated myself on everything there is to know about the musical, and I am watching the musical soon. So, you know, I've done a crash course and I've learned a lot. That's just like Kristen Core at its best. When I become obsessed, then like I'm gonna learn everything there is to learn. So you already know your girl's been doing her homework. So this movie truly just made me feel like I know it would have felt if I'd seen it on Broadway as a kid. Like, it was magical. It was fantastic. It truly teleported me to the world of Oz. And I truly want to give this movie 10s especially with me being like an Ariana Grande stan, like she's my number one like grand supreme girl. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I was always a Mariah Carey fan, so then naturally, like once Ariana came out, like I was Ariana down. So me being Ariana Grande stan, like I knew that she was so perfect for this role, and especially knowing like the lore behind her love for Wicked, and knowing that this was like a dream role for her as well, just made me like even more excited for it. So I already knew that she was going to knock this out the park, but like somehow she gagged me even more than I thought she was going to with how well she did. Like, so proud of her, so proud of Cynthia, like everybody that was involved in this movie. So good. So I have a few notes that I wrote down on my iPad that I'm just going to go off and share with you guys to kind of give like a play by play of like what my thoughts are on certain, moments and how those moments like emotionally affected me and touched me in ways that related to like my personal life and struggles, because I feel like there's so many different aspects of this movie and the story that can tug at your heartstrings in like different scenarios and different situations. Like it's in a movie that involves so many different experiences that many people have felt and emotions that people have felt before, and I just didn't know how big it was going to be, and how grand the world of Wicked was going to feel. So, my first comment about the movie was just the fact that, like, overall, I want to give the tens to like the fashion when it comes to like especially Elphaba. Like as a character, I've noticed on Broadway her fashion isn't like Gagatron, It just seems like for the most part from what I've seen, Glinda is the one like mainly serving like beautiful looks, but they ate with really being intentional, it seems like, with fleshing out the little details and the close-ups with Elphaba's fashion choices, to where she wasn't just some like green ugly girl. Like she's like, no, I'm still fierce even if my skin is green. I'm gonna serve cunt. Like I'm gonna give quirky little outfit. Like she has such a good individual like sense of style that I noticed that I really really loved. And seeing the interviews and knowing how intentional Cynthia was with wanting to incorporate like her blackness through Elphaba was also really nice to see, with like choosing to do micro braids. That is such a black girl experience that I feel like so many of us can relate to. I remember fifth grade was the first time that I got micro braids, and like, girl, I thought I was tearing it down. Like, it's just something about a good micro braid moment that's gonna make you feel like you could eat the girls up. And especially with it being like a micro braid wig, oh my gosh, they ate down. And I love the different ways that Elphaba styled her hair throughout the movie. Sometimes she was giving ponytail, sometimes she was giving braid. You know what I mean? Like, loved that detail. I loved the nails. Cynthia talked about how the progression of Elphaba's nails throughout the film. When we first see her nails, they're a little bit shorter. Their green kind of just really matches her skin. But as she progresses and grows in the movie, you notice that her nails get longer. The green changes. It's, deeper. We have nail decals and details on the nails. So I really loved the specifics of that, especially with me being like a nail girly. I know if you're watching on YouTube, I don't have any nails on and waiting for my Christmas press-ons to come. So excited for that because I love a holiday themed nail. I also loved like the details on her makeup. The green that they chose for her skin complemented her flawlessly, and I loved the ombre lip that she had in the film. So good. And then on top of that, with the freckles, choosing the freckles to kind of come through the makeup and just really make it feel like this is Elphaba's skin, ate down. Same thing with Glinda's fashion. I loved Glinda's fashion. All of her looks were absolutely incredible. But it's like, we already knew like Glinda was going to eat down. But I think the most surprising part for me was how much I really loved all of Elphaba's looks as well. And I want to start off at the beginning of the movie. Of course, Ariana Grande in this opening scene was absolutely magical. For me, being an Ariana stan and seeing her come out the gate swinging, knocking us upside the head with this crazy number, giving opera down, was like immediately overwhelming in like the best way. She served down with these vocals on No One Mourns the Wicked at the beginning. Like, are you kidding me? Which, by the way, like, I guess maybe I'm giving spoilers, as you know, obviously I'm talking about the entire film. If you haven't seen the film yet, then like make sure you do that before you watch this, I guess. But anyways, yeah, like that was just so incredible. I was so impressed with the vocal range that she gave on this song. You know, we're so used to hearing kind of like Black Ariana, like Positions type of era, type of Ariana, but like she just took it to another level with this. I also really like her facial expressions and the depth and feeling that she gives to Glinda in that song and that scene. And you can see visually that her internal conflict, like what she's going through while she's singing that song, and she's talking about how Elphaba died alone. And it's clear that in this film, her character Glinda wrestles with goodness. You know, that is a big theme, it seems like, in the movie. And with Glinda wondering, like, are her acts of kindness genuine, or you always wonder like if it's for show, you know? Because then on top of that, like, since, you know, goodness is such a big theme, is really pushed by Madame Morrible, who always talks about making good, I noticed throughout the film. So I really see that Glinda is wrestling with that as she has to like set fire to the burning witch statue, which I'm like, the munchkins are turned up. Like, I ain't never seen somebody rejoice in somebody's death like this. That was crazy. So like seeing that pain visually as she's kind of like, oh, this does suck because like this is my friend, is crazy. And it's also crazy how like Glinda, I wrote down, is benefiting from the downfall of misinformation and the false safety that the government in Oz is spreading with their agenda in this universe. And you see, as everyone rejoices in the fact that the Wicked Witch of the West is dead, and how they sing how she basically deserves to die because no one mourns the wicked and she's so evil. Like I said, you know that she's mourning because you can see the pain in her eyes, and she's the only one who actually knows the truth and knows that Elphaba is really good. Ariana conveyed that message so perfectly, and she didn't need to say anything. She didn't need to be like, dang guys, I feel kind of bad. You could see it. But like at the end of the day, she had to put on a show for the people, you know, in the Munchkins. So her just giving that pain and showing that emotion like off rip was just like powerful. I was like, okay, girl, like I knew we were in for something good. And then we go into a flashback of Elphaba's childhood, which I really liked because I like how it clearly paints a picture that animals were once a big part of society and how animals are important to Elphaba. Because, you know, I didn't know that an animal was like basically her nanny. So it seems like the only person in her life growing up in her childhood that treated her with kindness was her nanny, because her dad like hated her guts. And I also really liked seeing little Elphaba and little Nessa, like, no, like, especially little Nessa, like, she is such a freaking cutie, like, oh my god, she's so adorable. And they then arrived to Shiz University, which I thought was a really good detail because I heard that in the musical, Elphaba is already a student at Shiz, but in the movie, they decided to make it to where Nessa was just the student, and then Elphaba became a student. So I thought that was really interesting of a detail. But the entire arrival to Shiz University is like so good. And I love how they make it very clear that Glinda is that girl, like off top. And like the little lines that she gave, like after her parents dropped her off, when she's like, they're gonna miss me so much, was like so funny to me. Like those little lines of adding like personality to Glinda, like Ariana was taking it down, serving like the house down boots, like cunt, like what? And I also think it's funny how like Glinda is so used to immediately being loved and accepted by everyone, and she desperately wants that and she expects that. You can really feel that in the way that Ariana Grande is like delivering this Glinda energy. It's like it seeks desperation, but everyone else sees it at Shiz as like confidence. But in reality, it's so easy to see in this version of Glinda that she's a little bit insecure. And I know that some people feel like that is a bad thing, and it kind of shows Glinda as like her being a little bit weak when she's supposed to be kind of like this fierce, confident girl. But I think it's a good twist to put onto the character to give her a little bit more like depth, because I think it's like an accurate portrayal of how like some like quote unquote mean girls or like popular girls really are. Like the ones that you think like have it all and have the perfect life, the perfect boyfriend, like they're the most popular girl in school. A lot of times those girls are actually the most insecure, and they're not actually really confident, and they don't really know themselves, and they don't really have it all figured out, but they have this facade. So I feel like taking that perspective to show that side of Glinda is a good thing in my opinion. So the fact that she is already so used to and desperately wants to be like loved and accepted, and she's shut down when she faces rejection for the first time when she shoots her shot at Metamorable, was crazy to me, and such like a good little detail to add. And it's like, it was interesting to see that that was the first time that Elphaba was the prize in someone's eyes, even though we later learned that it's to use her. So I think seeing Glinda navigate rejection in the film was a nice twist in my opinion. And since we're like still kind of at the beginning of like them, you know, getting into Shiz and getting comfortable, you know, on the orientation day, I also love how like off rip you also see the character depth to Elphaba, and see that she's, how kind she is and how like good of a big sister she is, you know, because even though her sister is clearly the dad's favorite, it hasn't created a divide between their sisterhood. And I think that that was like a good kind of concept to push, that Elphaba at the end of the day isn't jealous of her sister being the favorite or anything like that. Like she's selfless, and at the end of the day, like she wants to take care of her sister just as much as their dad does. And you can see immediately that like Elphaba wants to make her sister happy, make sure that she's happy and she's safe with her time at Shiz. And it's also like relatable, I feel like, as a big sister, I wrote down, because when the aide walks up to Nessa and is like trying to help Nessa be like, I'm gonna push you to where you need to go, and Nessa's like, girl, no, like I got it. And she tries to like establish boundaries and say like, I want to get around independently, but the aide was like, no. It's like, girl, I just feel like that's so like ableist to just be like, oh, this like, you know, defenseless, like weak little girl in this wheelchair, like, no, I'm gonna do everything for you, I'm gonna take care of you. And it's like, girl, no, like Nessa's like, it's quiet, ain't no back talk, like pipe down, like I'm fine. You know. And I think that was like such a nice touch to add, you know, to Nessa's character, because she's just like, I'm not like helpless, you know, I want to come to Shiz, make a good impression, and I want to be independent, and I'm capable of being independent. And I really love that. And Elphaba sees that in her as well and wants that for her as well. So when the aide was not listening to Nessa's boundaries and made Nessa uncomfortable. It was such a big sister moment for Elphaba to then also get uncomfortable seeing her sister be uncomfortable, because I'm like, I'm the same. I don't like when my sister is uncomfortable. So her dragging her sister away from the aid and accidentally causing a scene, I felt like spoke to her character as a big sister, because she just wants her sister to be heard and respected at the end of the day. Like, that's just all any big sister wants. So I really related to that part of the film. And I also think it was good to show that Glinda's sense of entitlement is a big problem at the beginning of the film, because, you know, she does learn to care for others more than herself throughout the film. But once we start, like, everybody gets acquainted, they do the orientation and they start classes, and Dr. Dillerman can't pronounce Glinda's name. Glinda's like just giving her a hard time, and it's like, girl, pipe down. Like Elphaba said, some people are different. Some people have speech impediments. Like, what is your issue? Like, let it go. Like, that is just so, I feel like, selfish to not acknowledge, like, he just can't say it. Like, sometimes people just can't say words right. Like, why are you making this a big deal? So that was like such a little detail that I thought added a lot more depth to Glinda's personality at that point in the film. I also liked how Glinda and Elphaba really beef it out on the big screen. That entire number with them going back and forth during What Is This Feeling was so good. Like, they really did so good, Cynthia and Ariana, at like showing that feeling when you're beefed out with a girl and you're like, oh girl, like, you think you're better than me? No, like, I'm gonna show you. That really ate, and that entire sequence like had me smiling, because I'm just like, no, like, y'all are both serving down. And I think that it really showed that Elphaba is like not the girl to be messed with. And I really love seeing that side of Elphaba. Like, she's strong, she's determined, she wants to try her best in school, and she is not going to let Glinda bring her down. Once we fast forward, you know, they're beefing it out. We have a moment when they're in class, and I'm not sure if like that was before or after she met Prince Fiyero. I think that's how you say his name. But I wrote down, seeing Elphaba get so upset about the animals' rights and like their right to be able to talk being stripped away, I felt like was also a great emotion to show, you know, like, you're really seeing, they're really painting the picture of who Elphaba is and her character and her morals and values and what she stands on, like, so beautifully. Like, that was fantastic to me. And then also the chemistry between Prince Fiyero and Elphaba when they first meet was amazing. I was in there like, should I even be watching this? You know what I mean? Like, I loved how he was not even fazed by her skin when they first met, and you can just immediately tell that he's intrigued. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's intrigued down almost immediately. And I love that they show right away why he's going to eventually understand Elphaba and her support for animal rights, because he literally has a talking horse, you know? So that was really cute as well. And it was just like, it's always such a moment when like the charming, like, popular guy meets a girl that is not easily impressed by him, and he's like, ooh, like, I'm gonna have to fight for this one. And you're just like, of course, they always want the one that they gotta chase a little bit, and you know, they find that enticing. So I kind of like love that trope, you know, and the fact that they played into that as well and did it so well. But then at the same time, his chemistry with Ariana, like meeting Glinda, was amazing as well. You know, like, Jonathan Bailey was so good at just having chemistry with everybody that he was in a scene with, and being able to equally show that he's interested in Glinda, but having like a different dynamic that's also intimate and special with Elphaba as well, was really interesting. And like the moment where Glinda and the prince are walking around that bulletin board, like, oh my god, the hair toss of it all, eat. Like, I was eating that up. Then you have the Ozda scene that I really, really loved. This was the second time I wrote down that I almost cried while watching this film. The first was during The Wizard and I. That song got me because there's something so beautiful about a black girl having hope, right? Like, and you see that she has hope, but she's also afraid of it as well, and like wants to kind of privately take a time to be excited, but like doesn't want to be too excited and doesn't want to show anyone else that she's excited as well, because that's such a precious feeling, you know? So that moment just like almost made me cry, because when you see like a black girl having hope and being excited for the future, it's like it immediately makes you want the best for Elphaba. Like, they sold that. I was sold. I'm just like, yes, I want her to win. And I so desperately do not want her to be disappointed when she meets this wizard, you know? So like with the Ozdas being like the second time that I cried, well, almost cried, I just feel like what touched me the most about this with the Ozdas scene was like seeing how much courage it takes to be seen trying. I feel like that kind of sums up what the Ozda scene for me was with Elphaba. She, like, being seen trying is hard, and it's embarrassing, and it's uncomfortable, and Elphaba was really putting herself out there, and it's a vulnerable position to be in when people see that, hey, like, I kind of want to be accepted, you know? Like, ugh, something about that just feels so embarrassing. And I feel like it also, that moment showed how lonely that feeling can be when you're like being seen trying, but like still having the strength to just keep being apologetically yourself is what matters at the end of the day. And I feel like as long as you keep doing that, the right people will support you. And that's exactly what Glinda did in that moment when she joined her and danced. You know, though at the same time, when I reflect on that scene, sometimes you just wonder as a character, did Glinda do it out of pity because she had just learned that Elphaba asked Madame Morrible to add Glinda to their private lessons? But then again, it's like the emotion on Glinda's face shows that maybe she was genuine rather than like only dancing with her because she got what she wanted from Madame Morrible. I don't know, you know? So I kind of questioned that a little bit, but like either way, you can see that this is where Glinda and Elphaba's friendship truly started. And that's when they truly start to see each other. And I think that they did a good job of showing how precious girl friendships can be once you finally have that moment that clicks where you're like, okay, this is my girly down. Like, she understands me, you know? I love that feeling. Like, that is a feeling that can't be beat. Also, skip Nessa. Okay, skip Nessa for just sitting there and watching it all, because like, girl, if that was my sister, I wouldn't want her to be alone up there, you know? So I think that's also when we start to see the cracks in Nessa's personality, and you realize that like everyone in this universe of Oz wrestles with goodness, because she's being selfish there, and like, you know, you can see that she's really worried about how others will perceive her, so she's willing to just let her sister look crazy and like be alone. Like, huh? After the Ozdust, and we have that scene where Elphaba accidentally puts the entire classroom to sleep except for the prince. I think that was nice. But I also like the fact that they never gave us an exact answer as to why he was the only one that didn't fall asleep. I mean, of course, we can only assume it's because she likes him. But yeah, and I feel like this scene was so beautiful after they like escaped the classroom and he helped her, you know, uncage the animal, because I feel like it's really setting the tone to be like, okay, we are showing that Glinda now has a new genuine ally in the same way that she had Dr. Dillamond. And I love that the prince did not hesitate to see why Elphaba was upset about the mistreatment of the animals, and he just immediately sprang to action. And something about that scene once they let the animal go and they're just chilling together, I love how they both let their guard down with each other. Like, you can literally see the walls come down, and the emotion and the conflict in his eyes as he's clearly realizing, like, oh, I'm in love with this girl, was like so perfectly intimate. I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh my God, he's just so handsome. And then right after that, then they basically like rip our hearts into shreds, because they go into having Elphaba sing I'm Not That Girl right after having an intimate moment with Fiyero. And I feel like that was another time where like I almost cried, because I wrote down that I can relate to that feeling of wanting someone, but knowing that like you're never going to be their first choice. Like, I used to feel that so often, like before I found my boyfriend. So once again, Cynthia like serving down with her singing in this scene, and I just cannot express enough how happy I am with the way that they conveyed emotions and feelings, adding so much depth to these very real and relatable situations. Was like so good. And then after that, we all know that Elphaba then gets an invitation to go see the wizard. You know, the wizard has heard through Madame Morrible, like, your girl has gifts, so come and see me and let's turn up together. So, of course, that's like an exciting scene with her getting on the train. I loved how at first she was just like, oh, where's Fiyero? And like he wasn't there, but then he showed up. And Glinda's just like, girl, there's something wrong with him. He's thinking now. And it's like, yeah, girl, little do you know he's thinking about me. Like, no, that was fierce. And like the fact that he brought her the poppy flower, is that what it's called? Like, girl, I was swooning. That was so romantic. And it's like, you did that right in front of your girly pop? Right, you must really want me. Like, no, he's choosing up. He's choosing up, down. But yeah, like the imagery once they got to the Emerald City, I felt like was so beautiful. Like, first of all, everything about all of the sets and the locations for like every place they were ever at in the world of Oz was like crazily like impeccable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was so impressed. And I wrote down that I love the fact that the wizard let Elphaba choose the color of the brick road. Chef's kiss. I also like the intensity of the scene where Elphaba reads the grimoire. Like, ooh, I was literally holding my breath in that mother freaking theater while she was reading that grimoire. I'm like, oh my God, like this feels perfectly intense. Like, you are just like stuck in that moment in a trance, and she's like turning that spell up. And the way that she was like so expressive again and emotional when she learned that she'd been tricked to do the spell that hurt the animals, which was the exact opposite of what her heart desired, was so good. And I feel like they also really conveyed and let you feel the heaviness and sadness that comes with meeting your hero and learning that they're a terrible person. You know, they always say like never meet your heroes, and that was like the true example of that type of like moment, of that quote, like never meet your heroes, because she was disappointed down, and that's exactly what I, you know, as an audience member did not want when she was singing The Wizard and I. Like, ugh. So they really conveyed those feelings like perfectly, and like the betrayal that she felt was so evident when she learned that someone that she trusted was using her, which in her case was her mentor, Madame Morrible. Like, ugh. And I also feel like you can really feel her devastation as she realizes that nothing in Oz with the government is as it seems, and that they're the problem. The wizard is the problem, and Madame Morrible is the problem. And you can see that that's traumatizing. Like, that is so traumatizing. And I also love how Ariana Grande absolutely sold the emotion that comes with Glinda's internal conflict during this moment as well. Like, not only is Elphaba conflicted and upset, but Glinda is like, what the heck is going on as well? Because she's learning all of this information at the same time. And I feel like it is so clear that Glinda knows that the wizard's plans aren't good, but at the same time, she does directly benefit from this current society. So you really can see that she's torn, compared to Elphaba, who's like, no, I know the clear choice. Glinda's like, I don't know. And I think that, like, at the end of the day, Glinda and Elphaba learning about what's really going on with the government and seeing the wizard and Madame Morrible for who they are really resonated with me, because I feel like it can connect to like my personal experience with like extended family. Like, you can see what's wrong with the foundation of how a family functions and like the toxic patterns of behavior, and you want to be the one to stand up and be like, hey, like, this is unhealthy, like, this is not good for anyone. But then you also have family members who are like Glinda, who say, no, like, stick with what's normal. Like, you should conform to what that they're programming you to do. Fall in line, like, do good, be quiet, be seen and not heard, and just like play the part. But in this situation, at the same time, I don't think that Glinda is doing that with bad intention. I just think that she wants what's best for Elphaba, and that's just all she knows. Like, she doesn't know any better, so of course she's kind of like, stop buying all of the handles, like, just go with it. But at the same time, when you have that mentality of like trying to get somebody to go along with what everyone's telling you to do and conform and just be good, be quiet, be seen, not heard, like I said, all of those things, like, you're then a part of the problem at the end of the day. So I think that really adds like an interesting depth to Glinda's character that I didn't know was a part of her like lore, And then of course, like, after the scene, Glinda is just like, okay, like, maybe you should just hear the wizard out, like, maybe we can fix this. And Elphaba's just like, girl, no, like, it's clear to see what's going on with this freaking hierarchy and the way that things are run in Oz. This wizard is full of crap. Madame Morrible is full of crap. You're trying to take away the rights of animals. Every single thing about this situation is effed up. I'm about to defy gravity and get the frick out of here, and I want you to come with me. Seeing how like Glinda almost escaped with her, but then the hot air balloon like messed up, was crazy. It's like we were so close to seeing what it would have looked like if Glinda had gone with Elphaba, and then we didn't get it. That was really interesting as well. And I think that, like, once we fully get into it and she's like really going hammer bammer, singing Defying Gravity, and you feel the emotion and the severity of it all, like, the moment when Elphaba sees her younger self as she's falling and like trying to figure out how to fly on her friggin' broomstick, I felt like was so precious, because again, the personal connection of it all, where like I've learned in therapy that like when you're scared, like Elphaba is, and you're unsure of yourself and you don't know like what's the right way, what's the right path, like you're just confused and anxious and just like going through the gags. My therapist always tells me that if you think about your younger self and you realize that you can protect her and let her know that at the end of the day she's safe now, like, that's everything, So I think it was really symbolic for them to add that scene in there to where she sees her younger self, and then once she sees her younger self, she's able to gain the confidence to fly, was like such a good choice to make on the director's behalf. Like, there's so many instances where my therapists have literally told me, like, take a picture from my photo book of my little me and like put it on my mirror and like talk to her. Like, people don't realize how much strength you can get when you are reflective of the younger you, and you're just like, listen, girl, it's me and you, I got this, you went through the gags so I can get to this moment to get us through this, you know? And feeling that in that moment had me crying in the club. In the club, we all fam. Like, you guys heard that TikTok sound? Like, no, I was gagged during that moment. Like, what? Like, it all just connects to like everything my therapist be saying at the end of the day. So, like, of course I'm crying. I'm literally sobbing down boots in this mother freaking movie theater. Like, ugh, it was just so emotional. And I think like I also wrote down that you can feel how scared Elphaba is to be alone and to stand up for what's right when no one is by her side. Once she realizes that, like, okay, bet, like, y'all are all against me, and on top of that, like, I can't go with my ride or die Glinda, and I'm really up in here alone. Like, you feel that, and knowing that, like, okay, I gotta stand on business, seeing that moment switch where she's like, I gotta do this, I'm gonna turn up. Like, there's nothing like it. So overall, I would just say that I loved everything about the film. It was just so emotional, so raw, so real. Like, every single thing about the soundtrack was amazing. I loved all of the songs. They're such classics. And I just love what Ariana Grande and Cynthia were able to add to the songs. Them giving their personality and their takes on it was just so incredible, especially with Ariana and Popular. I also loved little moments like the library, where like the library was like moving around. I feel like that kind of reminds me of like Harry Potter, where they have like the staircases that move. Everything about like little details like that just made it feel so magical. And I just felt like I was genuinely visiting like the Wicked universe. I felt like I was there. I felt like I was a student at Shiz and just like kind of standing in the corner at all times, like watching them and seeing what's going on and like clocking the tea. And when a movie can make you feel like that, like, you know it's good. So yeah, overall, 10, 10, 10s across the board. No Beyonce. Like, truly such a good film. And I just think that, like, you know, it's just so funny because like you have like, you know, Cynthia and Ariana like crying during this press tour, and you see how deeply connected they are to this film. And it's like, oh, har at first. But now that I've watched the film, I understand why they're crying every 3 seconds. Because when you put your cooch into a film in the way that they did, you know what I'm saying? You know how they be like, yeah, I'm gonna put my foot in this when you cook? Like, you put your foot in something and you stand on that and you deliver and serve down real raw emotions and dedication to a character in the way that they did, I'd be crying during the press tour as well. Like, it all just makes sense. And I'm so incredibly excited for part 2. Bro, it's about to be mother freaking lit, bruh. Like, are you kidding me? I'm literally about to go see it in the movie theaters, like I said, for a second time. And then once it comes on streaming, I'm turning the freck up. In the club, we all fam down. Like, period. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and give this video a like, comment down below, like I said, to let me know what you think about Wicked. Subscribe, turn those post notifications on, Spotify, Apple, rate that 5 stars, leave that review. And with that, I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Cause I make rich look richer. Save your breath, baby, I'm not going home with ya.